Israel has begun daily tactical pauses in its military operations across 3 areas of Gaza: Al-Mawasi, Deir, El-Balah, and Gaza City from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. local time. The Israeli army says these pauses, which started this morning, are meant to enable humanitarian access and will continue until further notice. In addition to halting attacks, the military has designated secure routes for aid convoys operated by the United Nations and other humanitarian agencies between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. local time. Israel says no ground troops are operating in these zones, making them safer for aid delivery. However, critics argue that limited hours and ongoing fighting elsewhere still hinder relief efforts for Gazans facing starvation and displacement. Now we are joined by Lieutenant Colonel in Reserve Avital Leibowitz. She's a director at AJC Jerusalem and former IDF spokesperson to international media. Thank you, Levital, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, how significant is this move in the context of international humanitarian law, and also can tactical pauses like these can be seen as a genuine effort to protect civilians?
Israel found itself in a very complicated situation in the last 2 weeks. Actually, on the one hand, there was a system which was developed 2 months ago in which Gaza Humanitarian Fund, GHF, a civilian American company, built distribution centers and distributed boxes with food to family representatives in Gaza. There were 3 or 4 distribution centers. Overall, this company distributed more than 90 million meals. And as a reminder, there are something like 2 million people who live in Gaza. Having said all of that, Hamas didn't like it. Hamas didn't like it because this means that it lost its control on the food going into Gaza. Beforehand, when trucks with cargo went in, Hamas armed gunmen took control of the cargo, took control of the aid, and decided who they're selling it to in the market or in their families or other Hamas operatives. And of course, the prices were very high, and these were goods which were supposed to be given freely. So, unfortunately, due to very extreme international pressure, last night at the Israeli cabinet, there was another decision that was taken that in addition to this American company, GHF, which is distributing the meals, there will be also parachuting of humanitarian aid by the IDF. This actually started already last night. And in addition, there will be in some areas a lull. A lull means that in this period of time, from the hours you mentioned, there will be no fighting, there will be no attacks, and then people could go to the relevant humanitarian centers and collect the aid.
And Davita, critics argue that the limited hours of the tactical pauses combined with ongoing fighting elsewhere in Gaza still hinder relief efforts. How do you assess this effectiveness of these pauses in facilitating humanitarian aid?
Well, we need to know because today's the first day of such a pause. But the idea is to separate 2 areas, one area or a few areas for humanitarian aid, and the other areas where the fighting is still taking place. I really would like to remind the viewers that at the end of the day, Hamas is the one who committed these atrocities on October 7th. Hamas is still holding 50 hostages inside Gaza, and Hamas was the one who declined every single concession in every agreement that Israel did in Doha in Qatar on Thursday. So basically, the war could have been over a long time ago, but Hamas is refusing to go forward, to agree to this kind of an agreement and put the war behind us, which also shows how much Hamas does not care about the people of Gaza.
And Avital, what role can international organizations like the United Nations or UNRWA play in advocating for more and comprehensive also sustained humanitarian access to Gaza?
I would say that the key issue is cooperation with the Israeli institutes that are facilitating the goods and the aid into Gaza. Unfortunately, in the last 2 weeks, before we reached this crisis, this international crisis, there were more than 900 trucks of international organizations filled with goods, with medicine, with different types of aid that were waiting on the Palestinian side of the crossings in Gaza and not being driven inside for different reasons. So this situation should not be repeating itself. I believe that in a good working mechanism between these NGOs and the Israeli authorities, more aid could be facilitated inside Gaza in a more successful way. At the end of the day, Israel does not want to harm the innocent people in Gaza. The problem that Israel has is with Hamas, who does not recognize Israel's right to exist.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel in Reserve Avital